Hello, welcome to my channel, Peace, Light, and Love. And I was thinking of a sentence that Chris Waats' mother said. She said, "Did he really think he was going to get away with it?" And I think there's a certain sort of hope that deranged people have who harm others, that they will get away with it. And hope, a tragedy, does make a thesis out of that, how deranged people do get away with things, actually, and how being pessimist is actually not such a bad quality. So I'm reading from chapter 5, From Hope, a Tragedy by Shalom Auslander. You expect certain things when you move to the country. You just do. You expect those things because you've seen the films, you've watched TV episodes. You expect dishonest carpenters and creepy locals. You expect deer eating your petunias and raccoons toppling your garbage. You expect poison ivy and power outages and colorful neighbors and mice. You don't expect arson. And you sure as hell don't expect Anne Frank. Kugel sat on the edge of his bed, staring down at his phone in his hand. Behind him, Bree snored softly in her blissful, oblivious slumber. The numbers on her arm, they were a problem, a big fucking problem. If she didn't have numbers on her arm, he would have phoned the police immediately. Maybe not immediately. He would wait until morning for Bree to take Jonah to daycare. No need to frighten the child. And then, when they had gone, phone the police without delay. But she had numbers, didn't she? He had seen them, those damn numbers. And the numbers meant that Anne Frank or not, consumed by madness or not, half dead or not, rotting like 100-year-old corpse or not, the old woman was a goddamn Holocaust survivor. Which was a problem. Was he really going to throw an elderly, half-mad Holocaust survivor out of his home? Speak of madness, he could never do it. He knew that, even if she was old and emotionally damaged enough to think she was Anne Frank. Pity was a funny thing. It would be easier to throw out the real Anne Frank than it would be to throw out a Holocaust survivor so fucked up by the Holocaust that she thought she was Anne Frank. Can you imagine the headlines? Can you imagine the outrage? Local man evicts Anne Frank. Jew drops dime on Holocaust survivor. Brutalized by Nazis, tossed out by a Jew, one survivor's tragic story of something. If he'd heard the story, he would join in the outcry himself. If you were watching TV one night and the news came on and they reported with all their practiced shock and disgust that a man had thrown an elderly, broken Holocaust survivor out of his home, would he not share in the outrage? And wouldn't he be right to do so? The story gets weirder. This smiling anchor woman would say, the homeowner was a Jew. Boy, oh boy, the smiling anchorman would add, now I've heard everything. Now I've heard everything. This was a hell of a way to start anew. He'd never received any love from his mother. It would have been nice to be accepted, even if only for a while, by a community. But if he turned her in, they would never forgive him. And why should they? Hi, we're from the community. Welcome wagon. Here's a flaming bag of dog shit. They would have to move yet again. But what could he do? Let this crazy woman live in his attic? Was absurd. For how long? A week, a month, a year? Until whatever Holocaust she thought was hiding from came to whatever end she thought it would come to, until she dropped dead? And what if she really was Anne Frank? It wasn't impossible. They'd found former Nazi officers in Rio, hadn't they? Ex-camp commandments in New Jersey. Why not a famous survivor in Stockton? Could he take that chance? What if he called the police and they came over and cuffed her and dragged her out of his house and discovered that, my goodness, my God, she really is Anne Frank. She's alive.